That's it, I'm back at maintenance. This wasn't the video I was intending on making this week, and it's not the video that I had planned to make this week. Things have changed. I have made a decision, I have stuck with that decision, and it's time to move forward with that decision. I'm really excited to talk you through what has happened this last couple of weeks, because last week I mentioned to you that I was going to update you on all the progress that I've made, how things have been going, what I've been up to, and generally the fitness and fat loss journey that I have been on, because I haven't updated you for a couple of weeks. What I said last week is absolutely true. Nothing interesting had happened. It was just a case of me getting my head down, getting on with it, and getting the work done. However, I made a decision and have changed the process now, and in this video I'm going to be talking you through that and how I made that decision and how that has an impact on the rest of the process, but on me immediately in this moment. Guys, a very warm welcome to my YouTube channel. As always, it is me, Xander Conybeare, and if you don't know what I do, I am an online fitness coach. I work with females on building their ultimate physiques. I don't do fad diets, I don't do bullshit coaching and nutrition. I'm all about the full transition, the full transformation, whether it takes 6 months, 12, or a couple of years. I get people from where they are now and I take them to where they want to be. So the last couple of weeks, obviously I got into my training block. This is the third training block, so I was into week 13 of my diet. I went through that week absolutely fine. At the end of the deload week, we had my birthday. I think in my last video was actually, or one of my last videos, it was actually my birthday. I was recording this. So we went out at the weekend. We had a really nice takeaway, had a fantastic time. My brother-in-law, he was celebrating his first class degree, so we were out celebrating for them as well. And essentially, I ate a lot of food. I went big for the weekend and I was fully relaxed. Was no negative eating behaviors or anything like that. Just generally enjoyed my time. I probably did gain a little bit over the weekend, and I'm absolutely fine with that. No problem at all, because I did eat a lot of food. I can fully recognize that, and I had a bloody wonderful time. So hey, it is what it is. Came back into the following week, and then I started to get some lowest weigh-ins I've ever had. So sitting in this chair right now, I weigh the lightest I've ever weighed, because even back at maintenance, which I've continued to lose. And that's only going to be water weight. And I will discuss that a lot more next week, because next week I'm going to be talking about the exit strategy and things like that. At the moment, I'm obviously just talking you through my decision. So anyway, I went through that week absolutely fine, went into the low 64s, entered week 2, so this was week 14 of my diet. I started to struggle. This was good fun for me. I enjoyed it. It was hard. I got quite hungry. I was getting to the point where my brain didn't want to go for walks, and I was going anyway. And for me, this is a motivating time. And when I sit here and I think about it, I think, yes, this is what I started this for. It sounds really sadistic, but I love these kinds of challenges. I love these kinds of mindset battles that go on. And I love to see how hard I can push myself in these moments to really see what I'm made of, right? To see how much I can control my mindset in order to facilitate a certain manner or facilitate an action or things like that. So for me, this is what I was looking forward to. I was excited for the challenges that I knew were coming my way. Getting into those challenges was no problem for me. I got my head down, I kept my macros, I blanded up my diet a little bit more so I could get more food in. I made sure that I wasn't eating things that were too sweet and driving that craving, which I had done a little bit the week before, and I kind of drove those hunger cravings a little bit higher, but I was fine, it was good. And you know, I think in some senses, you know, we live and learn. But one of the things I think is important to note was that going through this week, the mental fatigue started to creep in, and I started to lose my sleep quality. Generally speaking, my capabilities throughout the day were becoming limited, so I could concentrate for less periods of time. I was getting a couple of mind blanks, things like that, and my motivation to work beyond the things I immediately needed to do was waning hard. Over the past few weeks, I've been doing a lot of extra hours, working through the evenings into the night to get project work done, and I'm really loving that. I have been loving that, and last week it just wasn't there. I was struggling to reach the end of the day for the work that I needed to get done, let alone the work I wanted to go ahead and do after that. And this really compounded on my frustration, because for me, I wanted to get this work done. I love the project work I'm doing at the moment, and I'm passionate about getting it out to my team and obviously building for the wider purpose as well. I'm not somebody who gives up. I'm not somebody who will turn down a challenge. I'm certainly not someone who will back down from something they said they were going to do. So I was presented then with a massive challenge, a big question. And it was actually my partner who helped me through this, because at this point, I realised that the thing I wanted the most, that challenge, to experience that, was on my doorstep. I was living that challenge at this point. I was the leanest I'd ever been. I'm the lightest I've ever been, the lowest calories, the highest expenditure I'd ever been combined. So yeah, it was struggle city, and that was where I wanted to be. I wanted to experience that. However, if we scroll back to the very first video I made, I said that I was only doing this because I really wanted to push myself, see how far I could go, but I wouldn't do it to the point where I got stage lean. And I made another video that said I wouldn't do this to the extent where it compromised my ability to work, the work that I was doing for my team, and or my ability to produce the content I want to produce and the work. And it was getting to that point. And to me, I was getting so much more involved in that process of being like, right, head in, let's go, this is fun. And actually my partner pulled me to the side, figuratively speaking, and said, have you realised what you're doing? And I kind of said, oh, what do you mean? She said, you're tired, you're becoming irritable. She said, I don't mind. It's, you know, I knew this was going to happen, but you have started compromising on the things you said you were going to compromise. You wouldn't compromise on. And that's when it kind of hit me. You know, I realised I stopped working at kind of 6:30, which is normal for most people. But for me, I wanted to do this extra stuff. I committed to doing it because I enjoy it. And she said, you know, you said that you would be, you know, more than happy to pull the plug on this if it got to that point. And she said, by all means, see it out to the rest of this week, but I think you really have to consider whether you have got too involved in this process, or you are just having a couple of days where you're very, very tired and you can't push through, and actually you can, you know, you can facilitate some more. But she really sowed the seed for me to think on that then. And like most people, my immediate reaction was, oh, what do you know? This is fun. But she was right. And so on Monday we had the conversation. Tuesday I went through and decided to go back to maintenance. So I saw through half the day. I went to do my training session in the morning and really struggled. The training was becoming hard anyway. That extra rep was becoming really difficult. Even in week 3, the adding of weight was becoming very difficult as well. So all of this kind of mounted up, and it kind of made me realise that she had a great point. And I was feeling very tired, very fatigued, and I asked myself the question, what am I going to thank myself for the most in 3 months' time, or in 3 weeks' time, or next week? Will I thank myself because I got 2% leaner, 5 pounds leaner, and really shredded myself to the bone? Or will I thank myself for making the decision for me, which was the bravest decision and the most difficult, of being like, I need to pull the plug here? And this is what I want to talk to you guys about today. I want to talk to you about making decisions that build around the processes of life. I want to talk to you about how we can decide on what is a good decision to make and what's a bad decision, when we should make these decisions and things like that. And finally, I want to just kind of touch on why this was the best decision I made more than anything, even in this early reflective period, and why pushing on wasn't the best idea for me. So first and foremost, let's touch on decision making. One of the most important things you can do with fat loss, or any phase really, is look at what you've got coming up, because you always want to make the process as seamless for yourself as possible. You never want to make it as difficult for yourself as possible, unless, well, you don't want to succeed, or you want to succeed but rebound, because that's normally what happens. People will swim so hard against the stream that in the end they give up and they end up further down when they started. Whereas what we want to do is try and pick a moment to get in when the tide is much less, or when things are going the way we want them to go. So if you have a few weekends, for example, looking forward at the calendar, no big social events coming up, cool, I'm going to give it my all for the next 6 weeks. I'm going to try and be a little bit more in touch with that at the weekends, and obviously if there are any social occasions, things like that, I will try my best to be more accurate with tracking and mindfulness with food and things like that through those times, because I can. And so what you've done is you've made the fat loss process for you more seamless, you've made your chances of success much higher, and you've made the whole process far more enjoyable, which is really important, because a lot of people have such negative connotations with things like fat loss. nothing wrong with fat loss, it's just the fact they did it wrong, and therefore they blame fat loss for it. So how you plan these things is really important, but equally sometimes when we do plan things, it doesn't always go to check. And one of the things I say to my clients is this: what will you thank you for in X time? Now, it depends on the occasion, but sometimes that can be, hey, what will you turn around and thank yourself for in a year's time or 6 months' time? And that could be things like, hey, you know, we're really deep in a fat loss phase now. Let's go back to maintenance. So, for example, I tend to maintain a lot of my clients through Christmas, even if their goal is fat loss, because there's so much friction there. They end up getting so fatigued in that period of time. They don't enjoy that period of time. What will you thank you for in 6 months' time? Will you thank you for the fact that you tried your best to drive through the Christmas period, or even if you don't celebrate Christmas, the festive period, where there's lots of social occasions, things like that, you turned down single food that you enjoy, you didn't enjoy the social aspect of it, and in 6 months' time, you will look back at that and go, what a shit time of year that was. Will you remember the £2 that you would have lost then? Not a chance. Not a chance. And not only that, but the week after, when you come back to start going into fat loss, you'll be refueled, you'll be replenished, and you'll have that motivation back because you've had a little break, you've enjoyed some more food flexibility, you've enjoyed the social occasions, so on and so forth, versus that person who comes back who's super fatigued because all they've done is fight the resistance of food, fight the resistance of the social, and fight the resistance of people all Christmas. And it's exhausting. I've been there, I've done it, I've tried it, and I wouldn't recommend anybody does it. The only people I think who probably should do it are people like professional bodybuilders who are going to compete. Because other than that, I just don't see the point. Because, you know, if you're just looking to lose a bit of fat, go with the flow. After Christmas, everyone is trying to lose weight, right? It's just the way the world goes. So why not just put it off for 2 weeks and then join the rest of the flow? Because one, people don't tend to have a lot of money in January because obviously of Christmas, and two, people don't tend to have social fever because of Christmas. So naturally, everyone's a bit more of a social recluse. Nobody's inviting you out so much. The perfect time of year to join the crew and do some fat loss. And I'm not saying go join a fad or do anything like that. What I am saying is pick your time, because it can massively help you in the relationship you have with fat loss and the success you have with that process. So I've touched on a couple of points there, and one of them was, you know, asking yourself, what am I going to thank myself for in 6 months' time? And that really is a really great question in deciding about whether it is a good option to do X now or a better option to wait. And that's key, because so many people are impatient. The truth is, when we look at the whole grand scheme of life, we often have more time than we think, yet we want that result now. We want to start this now. And the truth is, you just don't have to. You don't have to start that now. You know, in an ideal world, when I take on a client, the thing I would like to do is boost motivation first. So I would like to get them the best result in the first 6 weeks. But that's not always responsible, and it's not always the right call. So it might be a better option for them to sit at maintenance for 6 weeks, learn to track, learn to train properly, learn how to manage social occasions, and then start a fat loss phase. But that's not always best for motivation, and therefore, you know, they might get 4 weeks in and they might not see the point anymore. So you've got to balance those two things out. But equally, we have to look at how we manage the situations for the long term. And if you get somebody who's keen to manage it for the long term, so when clients say to me, I had a call the other day with somebody who said, look, in 6 months' time, I would just like to be 10 pounds down. And I was like, wow, why 6 months' time? I was very intrigued. And she said, because I realised that all the fat loss things I've done that said I would lose 10 pounds in 6 weeks haven't worked for me, and I've ended up gaining more. She said, when I started, my goal was to lose 6 pounds. And now I've gained 4, so the goal is now to lose 10. And so for her, it was a clear acknowledgement that these things don't work, and she was willing to put the time in. That's someone who will go a long way, and that's someone who will really achieve her goal well. I'm very, very certain of that. So the next thing to consider then is, for me at least, making the decision to come away from this. And obviously, like I said, there were a number of different thought processes for me battling that. But for me, it has to come back to the very beginning. And I'm obviously very good at this because I've done it a lot, but I still needed a nudge from somebody else. But if you look back over the videos, you'll notice I set myself up perfectly for this moment. I laid out to you guys and myself that if this got too much, I would stop. If this got to the point where X was happening or Y was happening, I would stop. And I laid that out because I wanted the expectation to be there that should these things start to compromise these things, I would no longer be doing this. It wasn't worth it to me. And it wasn't worth it to me when I was in a completely normal frame of mind. I wasn't hungry, I wasn't tired, I wasn't super into a process, I wasn't becoming a slightly obsessive version of myself that I can switch on and off depending on where I am, but sometimes it does take over a little bit in order to achieve a goal. Because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had me to look back on and go, hang on a minute, you said 6 weeks ago or 10 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago you were going to pull the plug at this point. So setting up expectations is really important, and I'm a huge believer in our values as well as expectations. Our values being our North Star, the thing that we believe we are and what we work towards, and our expectations is how we perceive the result of that. So for me, for example, I set my values that I wasn't going to value this fat loss phase more than the work that I really want to do at the moment and my commitment to the projects that I had laid out months ago. So when it was getting to the point where that was happening, it was very easy for me, once Katie had pointed it out, that I had made this commitment and I was overdoing it. What would have happened if Katie hadn't have pointed it out? Well, the truth is, the reason I got annoyed when she told me it to start with is because I was already asking myself the question. And so on the Monday morning, just so we had this conversation on the Monday night, I really struggled to get up, I really struggled to get going, and my leg session was hard. It exhausted me. In fact, the whole day I was tired. I struggled a little bit to do my client check-ins, and that was the kind of the first bell ring for me. And then Katie came in and was like, do you think this? And I thought, rubbish, I'm fine. And then I was like, no. So maybe I think the honest truth would have been I'd have probably seen it to the end of this week. I don't think there would have been any car crash involved in it. Do you know what I mean? It would have just been that I was more and more tired. Instead, I'm back at maintenance. I've got a lot more energy. I feel myself talking to clients with a bit of a smile on my face. And hopefully I've even seemed a bit more vibrant in this video. Because I look back at some of the videos that I've posted, I'm like, God, I look miserable and tired. so hopefully that's not been the case. But nonetheless, I wanted to be transparent. I wanted to say, and I wanted to show you that there are many ways to do a process, and none of which you ever have to marry yourself to. None of which you ever have to fully commit to just because you said you were going to. And sometimes you are only running a fool's errand if you commit fully to a process that when the circumstances have changed, you don't change with them. So say, for example, I carried on dieting to the end of the 18 weeks just because I could. Would that have been a fool's errand? I believe it would have been, because I was doing it just because I wanted to see out the 18 weeks. And what would that have achieved for me? I'd have been the leanest I've ever been. I already am. I would have been a lot more tired, a lot more hungry, and it would have made the reverse out of that so much more difficult. Would I have got any project work done? No. And the truth is I'm still recovering a little bit now. So this week, obviously I've had the huge dump of adrenaline, I've had the huge dump of the process, so I have felt more tired, but I know why that is, and I'm aware of that, so it's not something I'm worried about. I've just taken things a little easier and tried to get a bit more sleep this week. And so when you look at all of that and you consider what could have been and what is so much better option. And so in next week's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch on how I've come back to maintenance. I will also give you an update on the full process. I'll take some progress photos. I probably will put some up into this one, but I don't know what my camera was doing. I don't know, maybe the lighting was funny or I pressed the wrong button, but either way, it seems to have looked like I've taken the photos with a potato. So I'll show you some of my photos from earlier this week, and we will go from there. But essentially I want to show you how I've gone back to maintenance, the process of going back to maintenance, what I'm going to do next to make sure I solidify these results and I don't lose them, nor do I lose any of the habits and behaviors and things like that, but I'll touch on that more in next week's video. So folks, that is all for this week. A nice short, sharp one, just a quick update from me really, and a few bits and bobs around the process. If you've got any questions, please stick them down below, and as always, please do like and subscribe. It helps me massively with the YouTube algorithm. And of course, as we go through the next few weeks, I'm going to be posting more kind of educational content and more, I would say, specific to certain subjects. So if you've got any questions or things you want to see on that, pop that down below. But equally, your like and obviously your subscribe means that more people will see this content and you won't miss out on it if you hit that bell icon as well. Much love as always. Take good care of yourselves. Bye for now.